Today on episode 17 of the Frick Frack podcast.
The same guy is on the elevator, like super confused. He's like, yeah, I'm just trying to go to the second floor. And I was like, bro, you've been on this elevator for 30 minutes.
Hey everybody, it's me, Taylor Ransom, and I'm with my friend Johnathan Schaefer here.
What's up, guys?
Co-host and producer of the show, and we are honored to have you on another episode of Frick Frag. We are going to have on, in just a minute, Jermaine Francis, which is kind of a big deal. You know, he's kind of a big deal.
His username's King Jermaine.
That's his username, King Jermaine. He's a big deal. But anyway, he's going to come on, and one thing I love about Jermaine is, well, one, he's an international speaker, author. He's wrote books. He operates in the prophetic quite a bit.
He's a bigger deal than us.
He's a bigger deal than us. We'll put it that way. And I absolutely love his what is the word, perspective on so many different things. He comes on the show a little bit later. We have a good time. We talk about hearing God's voice and some spiritual stuff like that, and we also touch on some of the subjects and things that have been going on in the past couple of weeks with race reconciliation and things like that. And I absolutely loved his perspective. Yeah, and a lot of the things that he said. I loved everything he said.
He puts it in a perspective that actually you leave listening and you're not depressed. Whereas every other news source you see, you see it and you're like, okay, 2020 is the worst.
You think the world's
ending.
But
he puts it in a way where it's like, okay, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
I feel like he really communicated God's heart on the subject. So I can't wait for you guys to hear that. Listen to the whole episode if you can, because you're not going to want to miss any of this. Before we get into that, just wanted to remind you guys a few ways you guys could support this show, which is first off with giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Yes. That helps so much. It helps more people see the show. It helps more people hear about Jesus. Amen. And have a good time on the show.
And it puts you in the running to possibly be on our next
Reviewing Reviews.
It's a new series we have on our Frick Frack podcast Instagram page,
right?
Which you guys have taken a liking to, and some of you have already left some reviews. Someone recently complimented my beard.
Your beard?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like,
I will say the beard is I'm glad you have the beard. I'm going to be honest, it kind of saved your life.
It really was a godsend. If I didn't have a beard, it would just be my naked face.
Well, God looks out for us. You can grow a beard. I can't grow a beard to save my life, so I'm going to perpetually look like I'm going to perpetually look 14, which is fine because it matches how I act. It matches my behavior.
Yeah. I was curious how they knew I had a beard from listening on Apple Podcasts.
They must have seen it from social media.
When you hear my voice, do I have a beard type guy voice?
I don't know. You sound like a homeschooler.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
There you go. Yeah. So I just call it as it is. I got to be honest. Yeah. So you guys can leave a 5-star review. We did that video where we reviewed reviews. That was a ton of fun. Also, you can check out our merch, Churchy merch and Frick Frack merch.
You're wearing the hat?
I'm wearing the hat. He's wearing the hat. It's just turned around real bit. It's just turned around backwards. You can't see it. But you can get the merch on TaylorRansom.net. And also, we just put out a video the other day, Edgy Youth Group Kids, which was a ton of fun.
Oh my gosh, the amount of outtakes and bloopers we have, you guys aren't ready for it. We're going to be launching that on Patreon and later on YouTube. Yeah. But man, that was such a fun video to make.
That was so fun. Oh my goodness. Well, we spent like pretty much a whole day shooting that.
Yeah.
And it was worth it. It was worth it.
It took the whole day. The first half of the day was us shopping for the clothes.
Yeah.
So we struck out at what was the first place we went to?
We went to
a Goodwill.
Yeah, we went to Goodwill first. They didn't have anything.
Oh, you got jeans. You got your.
I did get the baggy.
You got your
jeans.
Trashy jeans from. That's the only thing we got there. And then we went to the mall. And first time I've ever gone in a Hot Topic.
Oh, I wasn't even going to say we went into Hot Topic. Those are fighting words.
I mean,
guys, don't cancel us, okay? It was just for a video. We went into Hot Topic for like 2 minutes and bought wallet chains and left.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh.
We needed it for the video.
That store is so complete opposite of my personality. I felt so out of place there.
I felt like I was sinning. Like just walking in the front, I was like, what am I doing with my life?
I can't imagine what the cashier thought of these 2 white kids who looked like their mom's waiting for them in the minivan.
Probably.
And like we both checked out and we both got wallet chains.
Yeah, I know. We checked out. We got wallet chains. It was like, we looked like homeschoolers coming out of there. Like, hey, I was just wondering, can we do you know where the wallet chains are? Like, I want to get back to the car. So I want to look
cool for youth group this Wednesday.
Exactly. That's what it looked like. So
someone called me lame. I want to show them off.
I'm going to show them. I'm going to wear a wallet chain, which was only popular in 2002. That's going to work. So we did it. We did that video, but y'all's response to it has been awesome. I'm glad you guys liked it.
I think Taylor may have coined the next Christian
slur.
Yeah, slur, which is son of a freaking Baptist.
Well, you got to make some of those sometimes. And I love my Baptist friends. Don't take it personal, Baptists. It's okay.
I think the Baptists are the only ones that could take it, honestly.
Probably. They're probably the only ones that could. They got strong enough opinions. They're they can take it. They can take it. Come on, guys.
Son of a freaking Baptist.
Yeah. Just accept it, y'all. Anyway, so we have some fun on this podcast. We're Jermaine. Those are all the ways you can support us: Apple Podcasts, merch, and you can check out Patreon, where we're going to put the behind the scenes of the Edgy Youth Group kids if you want to see that. And that starts at $1 a month. So thank you guys. Without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's get into the episode. Welcome, Jermaine Francis. How are you doing this morning, sir? You doing good?
I'm doing great and glad to be here.
He is here and on the show. Prophet Jermaine, I like to ask people the deep, profound questions on the show.
We get
what
the
the show
nitty-gritty.
is. It's the nitty-gritty. It's the dead serious. It's very important stuff. So I just want to ask you, before we go any further in the show, what did you have for breakfast this morning, Jermaine? What was your breakfast choice?
My breakfast was breakfast of champions. It was crackers and cheese.
Crackers and cheese.
Crackers and cheese.
Hey, don't diss that, though, because that's an easy breakfast.
So I've been out of town all week, so I came back. There's no food in my house, so that's pretty much what was here.
Oh man, we got to get him the revelation of Uber Eats. You could have got Uber Eats. You could have called in Chick-fil-A breakfast, gotten you some chicken minis, maybe.
Yeah, he would also be in a financial crisis right now because Uber Eats strips you dry.
It does. It's like $40 for a normal $10 meal. It ain't fair.
Jermaine, you travel, like you just mentioned. You travel a lot, and Taylor. He keeps on speaking it prophetically, kind of, that he's going to travel the world as Chick-fil-A's official spokesperson.
Right now, I'm the unofficial official spokesperson.
It's unofficial now, but it's just a matter of time. We're just a few videos away from that happening, probably. But as someone that travels a lot, what advice would you give Taylor? Because I'm sure you're on the road a lot. What are some road trip kind of traveling effective tips that you can give Taylor for when he begins this international journey?
This is amazing. Listen, I just discovered this trip within the last year, and it saved me so much time. I keep a travel backpack that just stays packed. I've got backup chargers. I've got backup everything in it. So literally, I never unpack that bag. It stays packed. So I come home, just change the clothes, but grab that backpack, and I'm good to go.
How about that? A travel backpack. What would I put in my backpack? I think I'd
a few Chick-fil-A combos.
Chick-fil-A combos. I'd put let me see. I'd probably put a couple books. I'd put a copy of Super Mario Sunshine and the GameCube right in there, ready to go. Let me think. And a pair of clothes. Clothes you kind of need on a travel.
No
backpack.
Toothpaste, none of that stuff.
Well, I mean, you can buy that on the road, right?
Chick-fil-A sauce usually works too.
There it goes.
Chick-fil-A sauce.
So a travel backpack. I've got that. Well, let me ask you this, Jermaine, because you travel quite a bit. You're bound to see some stuff happen when you're traveling. What is the best traveling story that you have when you've been on the road?
Okay, so this happened, I think it was last year. So we're at one of those nice hotels where you got to take your key to get in the elevator, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, and the elevator won't move unless you put your key next to your button and hit it. And so I'm in the elevator. I walk in the elevator, and this guy, he's in there, and he looks really confused. I'm watching him just press buttons. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I kind of put my key up, hit my floor, get off the elevator, go to my room. So I was just dropping my stuff off, and we're heading back out. So it's probably about maybe 30 minutes later, I get back on the elevator. The same guy is on the elevator, super confused. He's like, yeah, I'm just trying to go to the second floor. And I was like, bro, you've been on this elevator for 30 minutes.
That kind of reminds me, one time I went to it was one of those fast food restaurants with the Coca-Cola Freestyle machines.
Oh, it's one of those bougie places.
Yeah, I can't stand those machines, but that's an argument for a different day. There was just there was this elderly gentleman that was standing in front of the machine, and there was a long line, and he kept on saying, "Oh no, you go," and he kept doing it for about, I think it was somewhere around 10 minutes, and my mom finally went over there and said, "Sir, can I help you get a drink?"
Oh.
He didn't know how to operate the Coca-Cola Freestyle. Oh. Some people just aren't in the know.
They're not in the know. Well, the difference is the Coke Freestyle, I can understand not knowing how to use that. If you had trouble with that, I can understand that. The elevator, I feel like that's something I would do if I'm being completely honest. Like I would get there, they'd probably give me the key with instructions on how to use the elevator, and I'd be like, oh, that's great, thanks. Get in the elevator, and I'd be like, why isn't it going to the second floor? Like I'm pressing the button, it's not going. Like what is this? And then I'd probably look for the stairs. So I can understand that. But
poor guy.
Poor guy. You know, one thing about you, Jermaine, that I admire quite a bit is I've always admired ministers in general that stay on the road, because that is not an easy gig. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of traveling, speaking myself, enough to know that it's not a cakewalk. But people that honestly they do that for their ministry, like I admire that quite a bit. And you know, the thing about your ministry that's so interesting is it's not like other ministries where people are like, oh, hey, I'm an evangelist or whatever. I come out here and I just say some real nice stuff and then I go back to my hotel room. Nothing wrong with that. But with you, it's like, you know, you go around really delivering God's voice to people. And something that, you know, it's something that for a lot of Christians, maybe they haven't been totally exposed to that yet, or they don't know what that is. They hear the word prophetic, maybe they shy away just a little bit. They're like, what is that? They
think it's doomsday, apocalyptic.
They're like, what, you know, what is that? So Jermaine, I kind of like you kind of define just a little bit, what is the prophetic, you know, which for me is hearing God's voice. What is the prophetic to you?
Yeah, and I think that's the simplest definition, is hearing God's voice. But I also think another way to describe it is it's the revealing of God's will, God's desire, and God's purpose for someone or something.
So if someone were going to go today and they wanted to operate in that gift, maybe not for the others, but even just for themselves, you know, where would be a good place for them to start so they could begin to know God's will for their life? Maybe because I know a lot of people that watch the show, they're my age or younger, and they're really interested right now. It's like, what did God call me to do? And I would really like for them to learn to hear God's voice before they decide to go sign up for colleges or move across the country or make major life decisions, because we tend to do that. So I'd like to ask you that. Where should someone start if they want to hear God's voice? Yeah.
So first thing is pray. Ask the Lord to speak to you. You know, it sounds so simple, but you know, that's really what it comes down to. Asking the Lord to speak to you, and then taking that time to listen. You know, and so being intentional to listen. And one thing I always encourage people to do is, if you're in a time of worship, if you're in a time where you're already really kind of focusing on God, you're being intentional about connecting to God during times of worship. During those times, begin to ask the Lord to speak to you. You know, and just like, I'm worshiping, whatever, my heart is open. I'm engaged with God in those moments. I'm feeling His presence. In those times, begin to ask the Lord to speak to you, and then just take a minute or so and just wait. You know, just see what He reveals to you. You know, sometime during those times, you might a thought might pop into your mind, and sometimes we discount the thoughts we have and like, nah, that's just me thinking some crazy stuff, you know. But pay attention to those thoughts, especially in those times of worship, especially in those times when you're really asking the Lord to speak. Pay attention to what's coming to you during those times, and that's really God's revealing Himself to us.
Yeah, I want to piggy on that, because I remember that's a lot of times how God speaks to me. I'll hear His voice at different times, but especially during worship. And I've been we were in praise and worship in staff meeting one time here at the church we work at, and I was in staff meeting, and I remember we were just in praise and worship, because we do that at the start of staff, and I was just worshiping God, doing my thing, and I had a thought immediately come to my head. It immediately popped into my head, and it was, I saw myself doing a bit called How to Worship During Corona. And that's when I made a video. And I saw in my head, I was like, oh, what was I doing? I was worshiping. I had one hand up and I was spraying Lysol. And I was like, I immediately knew what to do. And I was like, and it came right on time, because that morning I had to post that. I had to post that Friday. I didn't have anything. I was like, God, what do I post? Can you give me an idea? What do I post this? He didn't answer right away, but I got to worship, and it just kind of flings at you. You know, it's not like something you don't control it. It just kind of just gets kind of almost like a text notification, just kind of pops up.
What I love about that is that, like, it's a perfect example of how God like speaks to us individually, like as He created us. Because like for some person, He'll give them like an open vision and show them like whatever, or they'll get something super spiritual. God's just like, hey, here's a video idea, Taylor.
Imagine this, like, he's in there during worship. He's like, oh, by the way, don't I need to give him a video? Do we have any of those video ideas? Gabriel, bring the video idea box. Just give one to Taylor. I don't know. But Jermaine, I love that you said that, because that's a lot of times the way that God speaks to me. And I would encourage people to do what Prophet Jermaine said, which is pray and seek God. If you want God to speak to you, you got to ask him to speak to you. The Bible says, call unto me and I will answer you, which is literally what that means. And so if they do that, and then when they hear God's voice, Prophet Jermaine, this has always been the hard part I've got tied up on, was not hearing God, but doing what he actually says. Because half the time he says stuff and it is not what common advice would say. And a lot of times it's not always what your parents or what people in your life would agree with. What is something people can do to do what God tells them to do, but do it in situations where it's uncomfortable, or where it's a situation where it's not ideal, it's not what they want to do even? What should they do there?
Yeah, now that's a whole nother argument. Obeying, I can teach you very easily how to hear God's voice. Obeying, that's a whole nother issue. But no, because we all have personalities, we all have our own will, we all have our own desires, and sometimes, I don't know why, but for some reason, God doesn't care about any of that, and he just tells us what he wants us to do. That's weird. And it kind of goes against that. I know, it's so weird. He thinks he's God or something, right? And so it challenges us. And I'm going to say for me also, it's challenged me a lot of times. Like, God, I don't really want to do that right now. Okay. And so, but in just saying, Lord, that sometimes I just have to be honest, like, Lord, okay, your will. Yeah. I don't really want to do this, but, kind of like Jesus prayed, let your will be done. Right. And here's an honest prayer I prayed. I prayed, Lord, where I'm not willing, make me willing. Ooh, like I really don't want to do this, but I know it's what you want. So help my heart to get to that place where it's willing to obey you,
Yeah, that's good. That's a good prayer to pray. I've had to pray that sometimes. I've prayed that before.
Every video I make with you. Lord, if it's your will.
Stop. Oh man. That being said, if you've prayed that, Lord, make me willing, I don't want you to at anybody. I don't mean to do that, but like, has God ever given you told you something you have to tell somebody, but you did not want to tell them? Has that ever happened? I'm sure that has.
Yeah, it's happened a few times, not a handful of times. But we've really learned, being connected to the ministry I'm connected to, we have a lot of prophetic leaders and a lot of prophetic voices that have really given me some keys of how to say some stuff without being as direct, and you can kind of sneak it in there. So for example, like I went to a church one time and I really felt like the Lord said this church needed to close down. Oh, like that's a wonderful word, right? Like, I'm not coming and prophesying, oh my gosh, your church is going to get bigger. You're going to be on TV. Stephen Ferguson invites you to preach. You're going to be in Elevation. I mean, like, all this amazing stuff's going to happen to you. No, the word was like, the Lord's like, no, this just, I'm like, I'm done here. Like, this church needs to close down. Like, how do I go in and deliver that? I'm pastor. The Lord, he said, y'all need to shut down. Excuse me. Bye. Can I have my honorarium, please?
Oh, wow.
Like, how does that work? Yeah. No, but what I ended up doing was kind of preaching this message about this seed going into the ground and dying so that a harvest could come forth. And so it was the word, like, I kind of delivered it in a sneaky way. Like, here's the point. Like, some things you have to let them die. Some things you have to let them go for God's purposes to really be done, And so I preached that message. And later on, the pastors came and said, I feel like hearing that, I feel like we need to kind of shut some things down here at the church and maybe kind of eventually close the church down. And I was like, whoa. The Lord got his point across without me having to just come in and be like, shut the church down, but like coming in, giving the heart of what God wanted to communicate without speaking some sharp and direct words that people couldn't receive,
You have to seek and pray to receive the word, but then you have to exercise a certain amount of wisdom in actually delivering that word.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. I don't think a lot of people think about. They think, oh, I got this, and now verbatim, this is what.
Blah.
And then that leads to people getting offended, and they leave the church, and it leads to all kinds of nasty stuff.
I think what I really want is so much so not that I want more people to become, which is what the Bible says. Paul said, I desire that y'all prophesy. So something on this show that I've liked having you on about is that, it's not so much about everybody being a prophet, because a lot of people think if they hear God's voice all of a sudden, that means they got to go tell everybody everything God said.
Thus saith the Lord.
So it's like, for me, it's like half the stuff God tells me, I don't tell anybody. I don't tell anybody about it. But some people seem to think that it's like something where you got to tell everybody everything. And so I think that when you hear God's voice, and this is another thing, Jermaine, I'd like to ask you too, because a lot of the questions that I get from people that message me, I get a lot of people that message me on Instagram and they say stuff like, Taylor, I feel like God's calling me to go to this college, but he hasn't given me a confirmation yet. Would you explain that to somebody? Because especially for people that are just starting to hear God's voice, they shouldn't exactly just go off on a whim on what they think God is saying to them. What should they do when they're in that situation? Should they ask for a confirmation? What is a confirmation? How many confirmations should they ask for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think also it comes down to being connected to right spiritual authority and right leadership, because all of us, the Bible says we hear in part, so right. None of us have a full picture of what God is speaking, or what we may get an impression of something, but not fully understand. And so that's where I feel like it's important to have spiritual leaders in your life that you can say, hey, this is kind of what I'm feeling. Don't go and tell them God told me to do this, but go and say, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking, and just throw your idea out there and let it bounce back off them. Let them say, here's some wisdom. Don't do this or don't do that. And the Bible says there's wisdom in a counsel, and so I feel like it's always good to not just take what you're hearing and run off and do it all by yourself, but connect with other people, let them confirm it, let God bring multiple confirmations to you. And you don't need 15 of them. Like, I need God to do these 15 things. Let the wind blow, let the car drive by at this exact time, then I know it's God. Yeah. But follow the peace of the Lord that He gives into your heart. You're like, wow, this is really God. And there's a confirmation from leaders in your life that can speak into you. I feel like that's a good guiding post.
One thing I want to run by you, Jermaine, is I think a lot of people maybe that have no experience with the prophetic or hearing God's voice and putting into action. Do you have any stories or examples of how hearing God's voice for someone else was the breakthrough that let someone else hear God's voice for themselves?
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, well, so we do what we call prophetic activations, which we do a lot of seminars where we go out and we teach biblically, what the Bible says about hearing God's voice. And so at the end of each lesson that we teach, we say, okay, we're going to practice it right now. We're going to pray. We're going to ask God to speak, and give people time to just hear from God and then share it with someone else to kind of help build their confidence. And so that's one of the things that we do is we get people to start hearing God for someone else. Mm-hmm. And as they do that, it opens them up. Like you're saying, it really opens them up to really recognize, hey, I'm hearing God too. So we've done that, all the time. But one of the biggest confirmations that people get is when they start sharing something with someone else and that person's like, oh my gosh, that's what I needed to hear right now. And the person's like, what?
Yeah.
And then in that moment, I'm always like, okay, now pay attention to how you receive that word. Like, was it a picture? Like, did God just speak something to you? Did you have a thought? And then pay attention to how you got it. And then think back on your life. How many times have you received something that way? And then they're like, oh my gosh, that was God speaking to me. And it becomes like an aha for them. It just breaks them through. Like, I was hearing God. And I feel like a lot of more people are hearing God than not. Most people, it's just so the key is really recognizing that it's God communicating to you. And I think, Taylor, like your example of being in that time of worship, and then you just, that idea for the video came into your head. Like, yeah. I think a lot of people have those experiences and may ignore that. Like, nah, that was just me thinking about the video, So really being able to pay attention and recognize that it's God communicating to us.
That's important. So sometimes God will do something for you through someone else before you recognize that that's for you. That's interesting. And Pastor Jermaine, I would encourage anyone listening to this. This isn't a close, but I would encourage you guys to go check out his social media, Jermaine Francis. And I would encourage you to go get his book, which was, I believe it was called, which one is it? You sent it to me and I forgot the title, Jermaine. Tell me about it.
It's all right. Activating the Gift of Prophecy.
Activating the Gift of Prophecy. Which has been a real blessing to me. I have read the book. I will confirm that I read the book.
He just didn't read the title.
I just didn't read the title. I didn't pay attention to the title. I did read the book, though, and it is a fantastic book. And, Prophet Jermaine as well, another reason that I wanted to have you come on the show is because I love how when you look at situations, you're looking at it with God's heart. You're not just looking at things with like, oh, hey, this is my opinion. This is what I'm saying. But you really try to understand what God is saying in that situation. Where this episode is coming out, we're recording this Saturday, but it's coming out Monday. And a lot of the situations that we've seen in our country as of late have been absolutely just horrible situations. Breonna Taylor was shot actually in my city, Louisville. I've watched that whole thing unfold, the whole situation with George Floyd, which is, I mean, just terrible. These things are happening. And, you know, I posted earlier last week, and I prayed about it in my post, and I talked about it. And, but I would really like to just have that conversation with you, because I'd like to know what you think and what you feel God's been laying on your heart about the situation. And because of that, I kind of just like to open it up to you. Just what has God been speaking to you about that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And so I'll start with this kind of understanding this principle first. I feel like it's one of those things where the enemy also can sense God's heart, you know, and what God wants to accomplish in a season and in a time. And, you know, we can look at an example of right before Jesus' birth, you know, Herod's like, hey, I feel like God's going to release the Messiah. So he goes on a killing spree, you know, and basically starts killing all these babies, you know. And so I feel like right now, God's heart really is for unity. You know, God's heart really is to bring a divided nation together. And I feel like the enemy's heart in all of this is to press on those pressure points that were already present to cause these things to kind of explode and come to a real place of more conflict, doing what the opposite of God's heart is in this season. God's heart is to bring unity. I feel like the enemy's heart is to divide. And so he's using all of this to stir that division. That's from the spiritual aspect. But naturally, you know, people are hurting, you know, people are going through difficult times, you know, seeing the pain of what's happening in our nation, seeing people being mistreated, seeing, you know, just the injustice that's taking place, and the injustice that in one sense, many people are looking at and saying, this is not really being dealt with. Like no one's doing anything about the injustice. It's not really being dealt with. And so any person, you know, and I don't want to focus just on the race issue, because I think at the core, any human that experiences these things reacts the same way. You know, feeling like you're not being heard, your needs aren't important. And so right now the issue is focusing on the African American community and them feeling that pain, feeling like they're not being heard, their life doesn't matter and their value doesn't matter. I mean, if you did that to let's just for the sake of argument, if you did that to a white community, I feel like they would react the same way, you know, if they were targeted that way. So the reaction is, I think that's a human reaction, you know, to the pain that's taking place. But right now, the focus of the core right now is what's happening to the African American community, the injustice that's taking place. But at the core, it's human pain. It is pain that's causing us to react in a certain way. And of course there's injustice, and of course there's things that we have to fight against. And I think protests are great. That's what's needed. Riots are not okay. Riots is kind of where the line is drawn. You know, you don't need to riot. Protesting is okay to kind of get your voice out there. But I did post a post, and basically I kind of broke it down in this way that my perspective. I always pull things back. I always don't get micro. You know, kind of always pull things back, take a bigger perspective of things. And everyone's like, yeah, you know, there's so much racism in the nation. And yeah, of course there is. There's things going on. But for me, racism is not an inherent thing. It's something that's taught. You know, no one is born a racist. You don't look at a baby and like, oh, that baby doesn't like a different race because babies are so cute. But you got to realize, like, it's cultural. It's something that is taught. It's something that is kept in place by people's exposure, by what they experience. And so the way to tear that down is by connecting with someone. If I meet someone from a distance, I can judge anyone. You know, from a distance, I can be like, that person's like that, because I can look at them but once I start talking to someone and start hearing their heart, immediately there's that heart connection. I'm like, oh, I see you differently now because I know you. You know, so I think once you begin to connect with someone and get to know them, the walls come down, the judgment comes down. So I think really the key in all of this is heart connection. Is for us to connect to one another, different races, different whatever you are, begin to connect, because as we connect, you're going to have a right perspective of the person. You're going to really know that person and not just judge them from a distance. And so when we lump people into different categories, these are white people, these are black people, then of course it gives us the ability to create these biases about them because we lump them in a category. But once I get to know someone, I'm like, no, that's Mark. He's my friend. This is what he's like. This is what his job is like. This is what his family is like. And he becomes a personal person, you know, like you really get to know and understand him. And you no longer put him in a category because you know him.
Right.
And I think that's really the key is for us to get to know people, and it helps us take people out of categories and breaks that judgment off of them. And then on the flip side, the African American community, the pain, the hurt that's there, totally justifiable, totally understandable. Pain is real. Yes. It is absolutely. Of course, we're going to fight injustice legally and through judicial systems and through structures that are really unjust, But at the same time, there has to be a healing that takes place in the heart. Mm-hmm. And not just holding on to the pain and the pain becoming the identity. And so letting God touch those areas of our heart so that we can get healed, so we can come into a place of health, so that we can bring healing to others. And I think that's really one of the key, is to acknowledge the pain, but don't let the pain rule you. Don't let the pain be the only thing about your life,
Yeah. No, that blessed me so much. I agree with everything that you just said, Jermaine. I love that. And one other thing I saw, and this kind of echoes what you just said, but I saw on your Instagram a particular thing you posted that I absolutely loved. And that was on your Insta. It says, there is an answer to these issues. The answer is not found in changing the services or in a reconciliation church service. We love the reconciliation church services, don't we?
Yeah, super emotional. It's one Sunday and then we move on.
It's solved at the dinner tables and in homes. I'm not talking about just talking about the issues at the table with your own family. I'm talking about inviting one another into our homes and connecting. It's hard to label and categorize someone you've spent time with and gotten to know personally. Connection is the answer. This needs to happen on all sides. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's such a good point, because if you go on Twitter or Facebook, you would think we're the most divided nation, and I would say we probably are more divided than we ever been right now. But like Jermaine says, it's a specific attack at what God's wanting to do, which is bring us together. But once you actually have a conversation with someone, like right now with Jermaine, it's like such a peace comes when you just talk to each other in person. And so I'm just like, everyone listening and watching, don't look at Twitter and think it's the real world, because it's not.
Right.
Yeah. It's simply not. Oh, man. Well, Jermaine, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. And I want to ask you one other thing, too, because you just gave us some great action steps that start connecting with people, start talking with people, doing that kind of thing. Is there anything else as believers you think we should be doing? How should I be praying right now? What should I be praying about? What should we be doing besides making sure we're connecting with everybody? Obviously, that's super important. That's number one. But is there anything else that we should be doing as well?
I feel like I really think the key is right now just praying for the unity that's God's heart right now, is that unity is really what I feel like God wants to bring forth. So just agreeing with God that the unity would break forth in the midst of all of this chaos that we're seeing, but God's heart of unity would really come forth.
Right.
Yeah. And that's such a perspective shift for me.
Yeah.
Is thinking that whatever the devil's doing, God wants the opposite.
Exactly.
So if we're being told we're the most divided nation possible, recognizing that as an attack, and then God's will is for the opposite. And to me, that's just so encouraging.
That's right. Well, I will be adding that to my prayer list, and we've got to throw a taco party or something.
Yeah, can you put one unspoken on there?
One unspoken. Let's put one unspoken. Let's just put it right there on there. And Jermaine, dude, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. I want to ask you something else, because we got out of that conversation, but I want to do something kind of fun now, and I just want to ask you, what state are you in, or what state are you based out of? I don't know where you live.
I don't know where I live. No, no, Florida. I'm in Florida right now, near Destin, Florida.
You're in Florida right now? Well, I have this chart. I've been debating with some friends over the past few days, because this chart came out which lists the most popular fast food restaurants for each state. And I'm in Kentucky. My state's saved, sanctified, and serving God, because Chick-fil-A is the number one restaurant for the state. For Florida, and I'm looking at the chart right now, it says that y'all's is Dave & Buster's. How exactly does that work?
I do not.
Dave & Buster's?
There's no way that's right.
I don't know if that's correct either. Okay, so here's the deal, though. Florida is a weird state. Okay, we're basically divided into 3 different regions. We have North Florida, which is actually where I live, and the culture of North Florida is a little bit more southern. So it fits into like Georgia, Alabama. That's kind of the culture of North Florida where I'm at. Then you've got the Central Florida, the Orlando, which is all Disney and that kind of world, you know.
Yeah.
Then you got the South Florida, which is your Miami Beach and party time, you know.
Oh, okay.
So as far as my area, it is Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
Right in this area.
Okay.
Yeah. If you drive by any Chick-fil-A, the line wraps around the building here.
Well, that's good.
We thought we were gonna have to cut ties.
I was like, he had the end call button ready to go. I was like, ready. What is this? Like Dave and Buster. I don't even know how that counts, but I
don't know if I fully agree with that either. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you could clear that up. You could clear that up and give us some clarity. When's the next time you're coming up to Louisville, Kentucky? The listeners maybe don't know this, but I live in Louisville. I want to meet up. I want to have lunch or something, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing scheduled yet, but I'm sure it wouldn't be. As soon as we can travel more freely, I'm sure.
Awesome.
It will happen.
Well, where can the people find you, Prophet Jermaine? Where can they follow you? Where can they see your books and things like that?
Yeah, I spend a lot more time on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is King Jermaine.
Okay.
I have a Facebook page, but I don't post too much on there. So mainly you'll find me on Instagram, or you can go to our website, JermaineandRebecca.com.
How about that? I love the confidence behind the username. King Jermaine.
Is that something prophetic? Are you standing and believing for something?
I think that's good. I like it.
I like it too.
I feel like the world just needs to know who I am. That's who I am.
I'm on board with it. Yeah. Should I change my username right now?
King Taylor Ransom. I can see it now.
Yes.
King Taylor Ransom.
Yes.
I'm not opposed. I like it. Well, thank you again, King Jermaine, for coming on once again. Everybody go check out his website, JermaineandRebecca.com. I would highly recommend the Unlocking the Prophetic book, and you guys make sure to give him a follow. Thank you again, Prophet Jermaine, for coming on the show. Love you, man.
Awesome. Thank you. Love you guys.
Well, guys, this has been one of my favorite episodes so far. I love the topics we touched on, and I absolutely love Jermaine's perspective on a lot of this. And I hope you guys took notes. I hope you guys listened.
Yeah.
Our next episode will come out in 2 weeks from today, which today is Monday, is the day we're releasing this. We're a bi-weekly show, so be sure to tune in next time. Next episode will probably just be me and John.
Yeah. We get into some fun stuff.
We get into some fun stuff, and we just have a good time and goof off and that kind of thing. So you guys are going to enjoy that. But before you go, don't forget to give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world.
It goes a long way.
It goes a long way, not a short way. It goes a long way.
Is that like track number 8
on the album that comes out 2030?
Yeah.
Maybe. That was more country.
It goes a long way. I could see that as a title.
It could be a title. It looks like I'd have a cowboy hat and like I'd be holding an acoustic guitar by the neck, like standing in a wheat field.
On a dirt road.
By a truck with a dog.
And a shotgun.
And
sweet tea.
I don't know. We might have to cut that track. I don't know. And if you guys want to get the churchy merch or just want to see any more of our content, go to TaylorRansom.net or the Frick Frack podcast page. We just put out reviewing reviews a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
If you haven't seen that already, that directly we review the reviews of this podcast. So I think you'll enjoy it. It's really funny. It's a good time. And your reviews, if you leave a written review, might end up in that video.
Yep.
Might end up in the next one.
We'll be making another one pretty soon with as many reviews as we're getting. So.
Yeah, we're gonna go and we're gonna do that. So that'll be fun. Thank you guys again so much for listening. To be sure to tune into our next episode. We love y'all. We'll see you next episode, right?
Yep. See you guys.
I love how your endings are always like that. It's always like, yep. See you guys.
Yep. Bye-bye. God loves you.